بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. As you remember, before Muharram break, we started the last section of the book, and that is about our relation with the environment. Anything other than human beings. We already talked about animals, and we had very important discussions about animals. Now in this part we are dealing with rest of environment. Of course, gradually we will divide this into different parts, and for example we will have a section about air, about soil, about water, so inshallah it will all come. Before we go into the headings of this part, here there is an introduction at the beginning of this part by Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli. And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this nature for our benefit, has made it available for our use, and made it manageable by us. We have ability to use them to our benefit. But at the same time, it's a trust, it's an amana, and we have to use it properly and in a responsible way. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Kahf, verse 7, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا. We have made what is on the earth a source of beauty, zina, adornment. Why? لنبلوهم, so that we examine and try people. There can be different reasons and different explanations, but one reason is that this is used as a means for testing people, to see أيهم أحسن عملا, which of them are best in action. In the same way that Allah says الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. Here also he says to test you who is the best in action, like death, like life. So we should not think that it is just a matter of benefiting, consuming, using, and na'uzubillah, even wasting and damaging and harming and burning. No. Everything is made for wise reason. You can use it in a responsible way. You are welcome to use. It's a blessing Allah has created for your benefit. But you have to be responsible. Another ayah in Surah Takathur that you are all familiar, Allah says, لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. You will be asked about all the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to be very careful about the way we deal with these bounties and blessings on the surface of the planet, inside, above, all of them. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, in a very beautiful hadith, which I have also put in the beginning of my paper on environment, says, لا تطيب السكنى إلا بالثلاث. Life would not be pleasant without three things. There are three major requirements of having a pleasant life in this world. These are things that even for our pleasant material, physical life we need. And of course, if you have pleasant physical life, it would help you with your spirituality as well. Al-hawa al-tayyib, or al-hawa al-tayyib, if we take it atf bayan for thalath, or if take it khabar hawa'o, so either al-hawa al-tayyib or al-hawa al-tayyib. One is pleasant air. If air is fresh, it's clean, is pure, and it's with good temperature, because tayyib means pleasant, can include all these things. If air is so, this helps our life being present. Number two, وَالْمَاءِ الْغَزِيرِ الْعَذْبِ, to have abundant water which is azb. Azb means again pleasant, fresh, sweet. When a water is with good quality, we call it azb. In Farsi we say govara, abe govara. In Arabic we say azb. In English we can say fresh, we can say sweet, pleasant. Number three, wal ardil khawara, and fertile land. If the land is fertile, it can grow trees, vegetables, fruits, etc. Wheat, barley. So these are three things that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam mentioned. Of course, as we have said many times, these hadiths that indicate numbers and involve numbers, they are not said normally as a matter of exclusiveness, that 3 and not 4. No, but 3 are highlighted here. So air, water, and soil. These are 3 things that are very important. About farming, about planting trees, about agriculture, there are lots of beautiful hadiths. But at the beginning, just we mentioned one hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then inshallah we will have more later. And also I have mentioned some in my paper about environmental ethics in Islam. According to a hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ما من رجل يغرس غرسا إلا كتب الله له من الأجر قدر ما يخرج من ثمر ذلك الغرس. No one would plant a tree unless Allah will reward him proportionate to what fruits that tree is going to bear. In your lifetime, maybe some trees remain for generations. Any person in future is going to benefit from the fruits of this tree. You will be rewarded. This is how beautiful is planting trees, making gardens, making farms that people can benefit from, and how also Allah is generous, that consider this as a great act of worship, as a great act of service. And also it shows how much we have to be careful about preservation of nature and improvement of nature. On the other hand, we have many things about condemnation of polluting waters and wells and nature in general. Okay, after this introduction, now let us go to the first chapter about the environment. Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli here mentions a few important points. One of them is that in the same way that for our health, prevention is more important than treatment, and you should try not to become ill. Although if you become ill, you have to go through treatment. You cannot refuse treatment. You have to try to find treatment. But the best thing is not to become ill, to live such a life and safeguard your health in the way that you don't become ill as much as possible, as much as is avoidable. With the nature also, we have to be very careful first about not letting nature and the environment to go into wrong condition. Pollution, I don't know, eradication of the trees and forests and greeneries, excessive use, burning, all are things that we have to be very careful about them. And then if God forbid these problems happen, like there is fire, we have to stop it. If there is dirt, we have to remove it. If there is pollution, we have to find a solution for it. So first, prevention and protection, and second, treatment and recovery of the nature. This starts with your own home. Inside home must be clean. Then the gate and entrance to the home should be clean. Sometimes maybe people think that inside home is okay, but outside home is not important. But we have hadith about fina. Fina is the entrance to your home. We have about Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, we say وَعَلَى الْأَرْوَاحِ الَّتِي حَلَّتْ بِفِنَائِكَ. Fina'ul Bab is just, when you put your steps before entering. That space, which means like entrance to your home, is also important to be kept clean. Every person should keep inside and outside their homes clean. The public passage should be clean. And as much as it is my responsibility, I have to keep it clean. If there is collective responsibility, like streets and places that it's not for one particular person, so we have a collective responsibility to find people who can clean, either city council or small villages. Maybe they can hire some people or divide the task among themselves, but we have to make sure that we keep everything that is around us clean. There is a general principle that Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli wants to draw from this hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna Allah tayyibun yuhibbu tayyib, nadhifun yuhibbu nidhafa. Allah is tayyib. Allah is pleasant. Allah is pure and loves us and everything to be pleasant, to be pure. Nidhafa means purity, cleanliness. Of course, in the case of Allah, it's not a matter of physical cleanliness, but it's purity. But what is amazing is that in Islam, purity of the soul, or you can say a spiritual purity, and purity of the body, or you can say physical cleanliness, are very much connected with each other. In general, Islam very much brings harmony between body and soul, between individual and society, between this world and the hereafter. These are three major areas that harmony to the maximum are wanted in Islam. So Allah himself is the maximum and the highest level of purity that you can imagine, purest of the pure, and he wants us in both our body and soul, in our physical environment and also in our human relations, to exhibit this purity and this cleanliness. Physical dirt and spiritual ugliness both are condemned in Islam. For us, not only having moral problems is bad, but also having physical disorder and physical untidiness is also very bad. If we are going to live by Islamic standards, we have to be the best people in the world when it comes to purity of the heart, purity of the intention, and also physical condition, whether it be well-being, being fit, being healthy, eating healthy food, keeping everything in order, consuming very reasonably, all are part of our Islamic lifestyle. So, inna Allah tayyibun yuhibbu tayyib. Allah is tayyib. Tayyib means anything that you like, anything which is likable, pleasant. And he loves also things which are tayyib. Allah is nadhif, clean, pure. Yuhibbu nidhafa. He loves also cleanliness. فَنَظِّفُوا أَفْنِيَتَكُمْ. And then hadith continues and says, one requirement of this is to keep the entrance to your home clean. Not just inside the home. Even entrance should be kept clean. So this is a very important principle. Good fragrance also is very important. Not only good character, good akhlaq, but also good fragrance, physical fragrance also is very important. When you pass by a house, good smell should come from that house. So this is also something that, for example, we have about the conduct and seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that whenever the Prophet was passing by a place, even after him, people were able to smell good fragrance. And Rasulullah was very much loving good perfume and was considering spending money for buying perfume as a legitimate and recommended indeed expenditure. Of course, not like today that, sometimes people spend a big deal of money, but something reasonable is not wasted and indeed is recommended to be spent. And then Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli says that we can understand that this is also not for only a particular gender. It's for men, for women, for children, for adult, for old people, for every person. Then he has a kind of interpretation of prophetic hadith about Mount Uhud. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a famous hadith is quoted as saying, "Hadha Uhud." He pointed at the Mount Uhud. Some of you who have gone to Medina, you must have visited the Mount Uhud, where people go to visit the martyrs of Uhud, like Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada. You know that before Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed, Sayyid al-Shuhada was a title for Hazrat Hamza. And some other people who were martyred in that battle. Of course, some of the people who were injured were taken to Medina, and those who died, they are buried in Baqi. So martyrs of Uhud who died the same day are buried there. Anyway, when you go there, there is a mount there. You would see a hill, a mount. Rasulullah, according to this hadith, said, هذا أحد جبل يحبنا. This is Mount Uhud. This is a mount that loves us. وَنُحِبُّهُ, and we love it. First, look at the Prophet's beautiful way of respecting even something which may not look as, a living being, something which has understanding. We may think, oh, this is mount, this is, just some, soil and sand, But for Rasulullah, everything is sacred. Everything is important and respected. We know how much Rasulullah respected even little furniture that he had in home. Everything in Rasulullah's house had a name. If he was using a container, that had a name. If there was little, for example, mat to use, it had a name. His, for example, camel had a name. He respected everything. Now, he says, this mount loves us and we love it. And then Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, as a mujtahid, as a faqih also, because we cannot make such interpretations unless we are familiar with the entire rulings of Islam and the methodology. But he, as a mujtahid, says that maybe we can understand from this that it is not only Jabal Uhud. Rasulullah is talking about this mount as an example. Otherwise, Rasulullah and every Khalifatullah loves all the mountains and all the hills, and we should also love them. So, of course, maybe some people say we cannot understand it with this from this hadith, but in general, of course, it's very clear that any creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let alone these mountains which Allah refers to them as signs of His creation in the Quran, وَإِلَى الْجِبَالِ كَيْفَ نُصِبَتْ, we have to respect them, we have to love them, we have to make a personal relation with them. When you pass by a mountain, a river, an ocean, or garden, you should recognize in them something unique, and you must, make a personal connection with them. You should not think that, oh, this is, one of millions, and, these are mass produced, they are not important, How? When you make a little thing, it's very important for you, which must be important. I don't say it must not be important. For example, you make a painting, it's very important for you. You plant a tree, it's very important for you. Then this forest is not important. This mountain is not important. Everything that Allah has made for a lover of Allah is important. If you pass by a garden that your grandfather has made, you feel very much connected to that. You feel there's a personal relation with that. You think that you must respect all the efforts your grandfather made and put. So what about things that Allah has created? So we have to have such attitude towards mountains and other things in the nature. But on the other hand, those who are not acting as Khalifatullah, as vicegerents of Allah on the earth, when they go to a place, instead of showing respect and trying to preserve and improve, they damage. For example, in Surah Nahl, verse 34, there is this ayah that you are all familiar, that maybe you didn't take it to this level, but Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli says that we can take it into this level as well. إِنَّ الْمُلُوكَ إِذَا دَخَلُوا قَرْيَةً أَفْسَدُوهَا وَجَعَلُوا أَعِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً. In the story of Prophet Sulaiman and the Queen of Saba, there is this famous ayah that when the kings enter a village, أَفْسَدُوهَا, they make it corrupt, وَجَعَلُوا أَعِزَّةَ أَهْلَهَا أَذِلَّةً, and they make the society upside down. Those people who had honors, when they attack a village, a town, a civilization, they bring them down. They humiliate the people who had honor. If, of course, this is about unjust people when they, try to invade other countries, and then they do this with those countries. So one of the things that Allah says they do is afsaduha. They make it corrupt. Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli says this is something that people who don't act as Khalifatullah do with the nature as well. Not only they make the society corrupt, but they make the environment also corrupt. People who don't use environment properly, don't use water, soil, forests, deserts, mountains, oceans properly, they are also afsaduha. They are also people who corrupt, who damage. But Khalifatullah is the one that he tries to respect everything which is created by Allah and preserve them and improve them. Rasulullah was so much particular about these things that even when there was battle, and in battle sometimes unfortunately people compromise. First of all, battle is a bad thing, and Islam loves sulh. As-sulhu khayrun. Peace is good. War can sometimes be as the last resort, just in order to bring peace, in order to stop further damage. But if there is a legitimate war, still we should not allow ourselves to have exceptions about environment. We cannot say this is the land of enemy, so we can corrupt their greeneries, their water, etc. Or in order to win, we have to damage the environment. No. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was addressing these issues before wars, and one of the things that he used to say is not to cut the trees, even the trees of enemies, not to cut them. Only maybe in a very exceptional cases, if a tree, for example, is not cut, maybe more human beings are going to be killed. Otherwise, as a way of punishing enemies, as a way of, weakening enemy, as a way of harming enemy, which normally people, may do during wars, no. Unfortunately, we see in the 21st century how people, disregard environment of others, cultural and historical heritage of others, innocent people, places of worship, schools, hospitals. They bombard everything, unfortunately. But even at that time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asking Muslim soldiers to be different, to know and remember that if a war is legitimate, it has to be for the sake of Allah and with full commitment to moral responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities was towards, for example, innocent people, elderly people, children, women, and also environment. And then if we have observed the cleanliness and good condition and well-being of the environment, there are some blessings, some outcomes for this. For example, Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba alayhi salam in a hadith said that if people observe few things, and he mentioned here these things, tarku zina, if people avoid fornication, wa kansul fina, and clean the entrance to their houses, wa ghaslul ina, and wash properly their containers, their dishes, and things that they use, for eating, etc. Majlabatun lil ghina. It will bring richness. It will bring more barakah, more rizq. Avoiding fornication. So this is something about morality and spirituality. And as I said, in Islam, moral side and physical side come together. Then Imam says, and making the entrance outside your home clean, and also washing properly the dishes and plates and containers that you use. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam also said, غسل الإناء وكسح الفناء مجلبة للرزق. If you clean the containers and clean the entrance to the home, they bring rizq. Also, Imam Raza alayhi salam said, Kansul fana yajlibu rizq. If you clean outside home, as I said, this is mentioned in several hadiths, it would bring rizq. Then there is a heading about harming and polluting the environment. For example, about if someone needs, for example, to comfort himself, for example, needs to go to a toilet, should not say, okay, and now I am in the jungle or next to a river, there is no one seeing me, so maybe I can comfort myself here. We have to be very careful and avoid polluting the nature, and especially about trees that are bearing fruits, about river, these public passages, we have to be very, very careful. Then Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli has a discussion about the impact of sins on destruction of environment. This is where, unfortunately, modern culture is totally unaware and unfamiliar, unfortunately. Not people, because alhamdulillah there are many people in modern societies who have these understandings, they have religious backgrounds, cultural background, but unfortunately modern and postmodern culture, this materialist, liberalist culture, unfortunately doesn't pay attention to the moral side that much, to the spiritual side that much. If they pay attention, nowadays, unfortunately, even some of them, they don't pay attention to the global warming and the environment, etc. But if they pay attention, it's just the physical side. But for us, the moral and religious side is very important. In the same way that polluting physically nature is damaging, if we have immoral lives, if we don't observe piety, this also would damage the environment which is surrounding us. They are harmed with our disobedience, with our sinful life, as they are harmed by our lack of care towards their well-being. So Ayatollah Jawadi Hamuli here explains that how oceans and the lands and the seas can be affected by sins of human beings, and he refers to this ayah 30 of Surah Shura. وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُّصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُو عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. When some calamities happen to you in this public worldly life, it's because of what you have done. So if there is something as a general calamity, then we have to see what general responsibility we might have failed to observe. Of course, it doesn't need every person to be involved, or every generation to be involved, or every city to be involved. But we as humanity, maybe previous generation, maybe people in another city, when people in a large city, for example, put their waste into river, not only they suffer, people who are using later down the river, the water, they are also being harmed. Maybe actually they're harmed more. But as humanity, it's us that we are doing this to ourselves. So we have to be very careful about the way we live, and we affect the environment for ourselves, for our children, grandchildren, and for other human beings, and also for animals and birds. Just yesterday, I heard on the news that, if I'm not mistaken, 2/3 of natural environment has been damaged by human beings in the last, recent decades. 2/3 of wildlife, some species of animals and plants, have been damaged by human beings and eradicated by us just over, a few years. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam quotes from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that when zina, when fornication becomes public, people may have always had some bad practices. Maybe in the course of history, some sins were there, but very private, with embarrassment, not trying not to anyone understand. What is bad in our society today is that certain things have lost their sensitivity. People feel, proud, and or at least, okay, that they are committing such things. So Rasulullah, according to this hadith, said, إِذَا ظَهَرَ الزِّنَا, if fornication is zahir, is apparent, is public, or zahara in the sense of it's dominant, is spreading, كَثُرَ مَوْتُ الْفُجْعَةِ, then unexpected death also becomes a lot. People would die a lot unexpectedly before their real deadline, their ajal comes. Or وَإِذَا طُفِّفَ الْمِكْيَالِ أَخَذَهُمُ اللَّهُ بِالسِّنِينَ وَالنَّقْصِ, or when people do tatfif, they sell less than what they have to give. So for example, Quran says وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. I say, for example, this is 10 pounds per kilogram, and I give less. And it can include any person who gives less than what he's paid for. Maybe it also is for employees that work less than the hours that they have to work. So if this becomes, abundant, this is increasing, then calamities in the form of famine and shortage also would become more. وَإِذَا مَنَعُوا الزَّكَاةَ مَنَعَتِ الْأَرْضُ بَرَكَتَهَا مِنَ الزَّرْعِ وَالثِّمَارِ وَالْمَعَادِنِ. If people don't give zakat, then the earth also would deprive them from barakat in farming and in the mines. وَإِذَا جَارُوا فِي الْأَحْكَامِ تعاونوا على الظلم والعدوان وإذا نقضوا العهود سلط الله عليهم عدوهم. And when people do zulm in the rulings and in the judgments or in the governance, and cooperate over zulm and disregard their promises and their treaties, then Allah would make people who are their enemies dominant over them. وَإِذَا قَطَعُوا الْأَرْحَامِ جُعِلَتِ الْأَمْوَالِ فِي أَيْدِي أَشْرَارِهِمْ. This is also very interesting. When people disconnect from their kinship, they do قَطْعِ رَحِم, then money will be in the hand of bad members of the society. So قَطْعُ الرَّحِم would send away money from them, and then bad people have money and they misuse money against people. وإذا لم يأمروا بالمعروف ولم ينهوا عن المنكر ولم يتبعوا الأخيار من أهل بيتي سلط الله عليهم أشرارهم فيدعو أخيارهم فلا يستجاب لهم. If they don't do Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy Munkar, if they don't follow the chosen, the good ones among Ahlul Bayt, then Allah would make their ashrar, their vicious and wicked people dominant, and then even good people among them, akhiyaruhum, they pray, but the prayer would not be accepted. So this shows that even our moral, spiritual, religious misbehavior has impact on the environment and on the benefits that we can receive from the environment. Then the final heading for this part is about fire. If, God forbid, fire breaks out and there is fire, we have to extinguish fire. Unfortunately, right now that we are talking, there are many acres of land being burnt in some places in the world. This is a catastrophe, this is a calamity, this makes heart full of pain, that these trees and these animals and birds and wildlife, they all are damaged, human beings are suffering. So we have to do our best to avoid such things, and when they happen, everyone should help to stop this, because this is another way of damaging the environment. But also here there is a spiritual point by Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, which is our last point for today, and that is about this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam: إذا رأيتم الحريق فكبروا فإن الله تعالى يطفئه. When there is fire, say Allahu Akbar, and Allah is going to extinguish the fire. Then he has here a discussion about what does it mean to say Allahu Akbar. Is it just we do nothing and we say Allahu Akbar and then all of a sudden the fire will be extinguished? He says, no, the meaning of saying Allahu Akbar is to be real muwahhid, true muwahhid. If you are true muwahhid, then your practices, your ideas, your collaboration, your lifestyle, everything would stop fire taking place. And if, God forbid, accidentally something happens, with this monotheistic approach, you will receive the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with your wise behavior under Allah's help, you can extinguish any fire, anything that is going to burn human achievements or human investments or natural resources. So it's not that only Ibrahim alayhi salam was saved from fire when he was thrown into the fire. Every real muwahhid, everyone who follows the tradition of Abraham, he would also be saved from fire of dunya and fire of akhirah. Inshallah, we talk in the next week about air, water and soil. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.